Well, this is something I wasn't expecting to make a video on so soon. I've been planning on doing a review of the Buck 112 Ranger for a moment because I have this wonderful old 440C version from 1980 that I got for a hell of a deal from a local antique store. And I thought it was a super cool knife. And I was like, yeah, I want to do a review on that. But I wanted to also get a newer version to review alongside it. So initially I had ordered a 1991 425M version from Blade Binge, and it was just taking a long time to ship. The shipping label was still saying, pre-shipment. And so I was like, okay, I'll just cancel this and I'll order a 420HC modern version or something on eBay, which I did do. I put in the cancellation request. The seller accepted the cancellation request. Okay, I thought no harm, no foul. We're all done. Ordered the 420HC version. That's still coming in the mail. And I was like, no big deal. Okay, it's all going to be nice and simple. Well, the 91 425 version came in today despite the shipping label being voided and the seller having agreed to the cancellation. So I'm not entirely sure what happened there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to the seller and see if they want to provide me a return label, because as long as they're willing to provide a prepaid return shipping label, I'll send this back to them. Okay, I put my thumb stud on here for the video and only for the video. I haven't used or carried this. But, it hasn't been in any way modified except for me oiling up the pivot point. So if they want this back, I will send it back to them if they provide a shipping label. But I figured while I have it, I may as well just knock out my Buck 112 review. Because, yeah, I'm missing the current 420HC version, but everyone's familiar with Buck's 420HC, and everything else is so identical to this 425M version that it really doesn't matter too much. And I didn't want to, lose the chance to show off some pretty cool models here. So that's what's going on. Seller on Blade Binge, I'll be in touch. I'm going to make sure that I'm going to post this video today because I just got home, just found the knife waiting for me. It's so weird that it shipped even with a voided label. USPS should have returned that back to the sender. I don't know what happened there. I didn't even know what it was whenever I opened the package. I was surprised to see it. But yeah, I'll try to sort all that out. And if you want the knife back, I'll send it back. You just need to pay a prepaid label. But I'm going to post this today specifically because, I want the seller to see it and everything as well. So ordinarily, I schedule my videos. This will just be posted today. But I'm going to go ahead and do my review of the Buck 112 while I have it in hand, because why not? Starting with the sheaths. Now, I will say this. This is not the original sheath to my 1980 Buck 112. This is a replacement sheath that I ordered through the Buck website. The original would have had a very different design, but I didn't get it with the original sheath, and I'm not about to hunt one down. So it'll do a good enough job reflecting everything else. I did put this label on the 91 Ranger. I'll remove that as well if the seller wants it back. Again, it's just to keep things from getting confused. Talking about the sheaths very quickly, they are beautiful leather sheaths. I've always loved the leather that Buck does. It's made in Mexico. Okay, the sheath is made in Mexico. It's very nice, sturdy, yet supple leather. It's supple where it needs to be. The belt loop has worn in beautifully on this one, while the rest has remained rigid. And it holds the knife very securely, even with the thumb stud. There's no rattle or anything. This is the original sheath to this 1991 Buck 112, and likewise, it goes in there. Doesn't rattle. It holds it very securely. The belt loops are large and can accommodate basically any kind of belt you can imagine. The stitching quality is great. The snap works extremely well. Good old-fashioned brass snap. Anyone with a Buck 110, you're familiar with this sheath. It's the exact same thing, just on a smaller scale. So, classic Buck quality. Love to see it. And all current versions, I believe, still come with these leather sheaths. For a while, they did offer a Cordura nylon belt sheath, which is actually pretty cool. I used to have a 110 with a Cordura sheath back in the day, but I don't think they offer it anymore. Talking about the knives, you see I did put these screw-on thumb studs down here. It's very simple. They slide over the spine of the knife, and then you tighten them down with an Allen key. It's not permanent. It doesn't damage anything. It just makes the knife a little more convenient to deploy. I do this because I like having a one-hand opening. Funny enough, though, on this original 1980 version, because I did make these from, I think, 1972 all the way up to today. But on this 1980 version, the thumb stud actually lets me deploy this thing extremely quickly. I did oil the pivot point, but it comes out lightning fast with that thumb stud. This 91 version, not so much. I mean, it makes it one-hand deploy, but it's definitely not going to flick out, even though I've applied the same oil to the pivot point. If I get some wrist action, I can kind of pop it open that way. It's kind of cool. I think these are kind of an essential must-have modification for me anyways on these types of knives. I really value a one-hand deployment, and I do this to all of my lockbacks. Here is a Schrade LB7 USA made from the 90s, and I've done it to that too. So I do this to all of my traditional lockbacks. I've also been doing it to some flipper-only knives and some other stuff. You'll see that in some future videos. Really just helps the knife come out. We're not in deployment and I guess we'll start with deployment and lockup since I'm already there. Traditionally, they would come out via nail nick, at least on all versions from 1982 and forward, because from 72 to 81, they didn't have a nail nick. As you can see, it was just a pinch deployment. If I understand the marketing correctly, in 1980, in 1981, they specifically said, hey, if you put a nail nick on there, it'll sell as well as the Buck 110, and it didn't. But it comes out, relatively easily. Lockup, I do have some lock bar flex on this older 1981 version, as well as a small amount of side-to-side movement, and it's riveted, so you're not going to adjust that. It's common on these older lockbacks. They've seen some use. On this 91 model, tiny bit of lock bar flex, very, very small, but no side-to-side movement. So I'd call that extremely tight. The lock bar is stouter on this 91 versus on this 1980, which is probably why I can flick this thing out so easily. While I can't with this, I kind of have to roll it out. The blade shape is exactly what you'd expect. It's a shrunken down Buck 110, 3 inches long, 440C on this 1980 model, 425M on this 1992 model. I believe it's 92, might be 91. This is why I have to label it 91 model, sorry, on this 1991 model. But they've also used 420HC. And the way I understand this is they used 440C up until 1981, and then they switched over from 81 to 425M, and then they switched over from 425M to 420HC in 92, and that's what they've been using ever since. Edge holding, the old 440C blades are going to have the best edge retention because it is the hardest of the steels that they used. They also make these in S35 these days, but those are specific sub-variations. But the 440C will have the best edge retention, be the hardest to sharpen, and they almost convex ground these old things. I had to put a bevel on it, a secondary bevel, so I could sharpen it, because I can't sharpen a convex blade to save my life. It's good. So it's also going to be the least rust resistant of the bunch, though. 425M from Buck, I have very limited experience with, but I can't really tell it apart from their 420HC. I think it technically offers slightly better edge retention than 420HC, but not enough that you'll ever notice it. So I'd call the blade steel under Buck's heat treatment good enough for all your everyday carry and utility work. Buck does a damn good job on all of their heat treats, and they turned 420HC, and in this case 425M, into a much better performing steel than it has any right to be. These old 440C Bucks are the best of them, though, because 440C is just a better all-around steel. And when you combine that with Buck's heat treat, you get a truly incredible knife. This thing holds an edge like you wouldn't believe. Hollow ground on every version of these. I'll show you the blades side by side. Hollow ground, they slice absolutely wonderfully. They are lasers through whatever media you're cutting with them. 3 inches long, the perfect size for everyday carry. And it's kind of funny because these were the shrinking of the Buck 110 to create the Buck 112, if I understand the story correctly, comes from military regulations. Apparently, too many people were getting into bar fights and whipping out their Buck 110s, and so I think it was the Navy specifically required them to, the shortest or the longest knife they could carry was 3 inches long, and so Buck came out with the 112 to compensate for that, and they remained a military favorite ever since, and I believe they still are very popular in the military. So kind of fun that we get a perfectly sized everyday carry blade from that restriction. The tips on these things are extremely sharp and pointy, to the point that, like with the 110, they are notorious for snapping, so be careful. It is a fragile tip on that spine. Okay, rust resistance, like I mentioned, is excellent on the 425Ms and 420HC versions, it's good on the 440C versions. Already talked deployment and lockup. Let's talk about the handles, because this is another interesting little note. From 1972 to 1973, it was a brass frame with a micarta handle. Then from 73 to 81, they switched over to a brass frame with ebony. From 82 to 92, it was brass and ebony, as we're seeing here. But they changed the blade steel over at that point. And then from 92 to 2019, it was 420HC blades paired with diamond wood handles. And then from 2019 to the modern day, currently it's 2026, they have switched back over to the ebony wood handles. So materials change quite a bit. You can also get them with nickel frames instead of ebony instead of brass. And it is a frame, it's not a bolster. It's 2 solid pieces of brass with channels cut out, and then your handle scales are inlaid and pinned in there. So this one, when I got it, was dry as hell. I had to let it drink up quite a bit of oil to get it to where it's no longer just wanting to fall apart on me. No longer wants to go up like a tinder. Love the ebony. I think it's a beautiful choice of handle material. I also love the brass. These things are comfortable in the hands. This old square bolstered, no nick 3-dot is more squared off. That's why they call them a square bolster. You can kind of see the difference on the rounding on those edges. So it's a little boxier, but it still feels extremely comfortable in the hand. These newer ones are just way better in the hand, though. These things melt in the hand. They are true workhorse knives. Absolutely. The ergonomics are fantastic. You obviously have no traction on these. Brass and ebony is not going to provide you any grip whatsoever. Neither is diamond wood, and neither are the first generation micarta versions, for that matter, because it was polished micarta. Already mentioned it's a lockback design, very, very strong. Fit and finish on this 91 model is pretty good. Slight gap on that frame to that back lock there, but nothing crazy. On this 1980 version, we definitely have more gaps. It's kind of funny. The fit and finish was actually a bit worse back then, but it's also been used a hell of a lot, so that could just be a matter of wear and tear over time, causing the gap between that brass frame and that lock bar. Who knows? Overall, I'd say the quality and the construction of these are excellent, though. These are fantastic knives. They have been since they were made. They remain a very solid choice from Buck. The weight on these, I forgot to break out my mini scale, but I did write it down. The 440C version here is 6.4 ounces out of the sheath and 8.4 in the sheath. The 425M version is 6.2 out of the sheath and 8.1 in the sheath. So they're heavy. You don't want to throw these just in your pocket unless you like having that heft in your pocket. They're definitely belt carry knives. Now you can carry them in the original sheaths, or you can do what I do with my Buck 112, which is get one of these awesome, let's see, you can see who makes this. It's Tarbic Gear Leatherworks kind of EDC system sheaths. And I currently have my multi-tool I'm testing right now. This is a Schrade in here, but they fit these Buck 112s extremely well, even with all of your other stuff. Line up that magnetic snap, and you can carry your knife that way alongside your light, your keys, your pens, whatever, and you're good to go. So I think this is an excellent system. It costs about $20. It's a worthwhile upgrade. The leather is nicer than what's on the Buck sheaths. The Bucks are great. I like this a little better, though. That's how I carry my 112s. I definitely don't recommend belt carry for something this heavy. Price on these, I'm not going to lie to you, it's high. I remember a time when you could get 110s at Walmart for like 35 bucks, and 112s were only slightly cheaper. I think 112s were like 30 back in the day. That said, these days they're going to run you anywhere between, I think it's $69.99 and $79.99 for a modern Buck 112. Secondary market, buy them used. They're significantly cheaper. And if you can get one in decent condition, I'd buy it used. But even if you had to pay full price, I think they're still worthwhile. You know, there's something about the heritage of these knives, the quality of these knives, the tradition of these knives that make them worth the price tag, even if we can get technically superior edge retention out of other products. These are just awesome. I don't have any competitive options to show you. I didn't have time to buy any. The Case Mako would be a good competitive option. Kershaw made one, I think, called the Wildcat Ridge. That was, I believe, the 112 equivalent. There's offerings from Puma. There's offerings from all sorts of different companies out there. But in my opinion, when it comes to this size specifically, this 112 size, I don't think anything really beats the 112. I've owned the Case Mako and Hammerheads before. I like the Bucks much better. These are using knives, and they are fantastic at it. So, yeah, that's my review of the Buck 112, and if you are the guy who sent me this 425M version, and you want it back, like I said, I'll be happy to do it. Just send me a, pay for a prepaid shipping label, send that out to me, and once I have it, I will happily return your knife for you, because I already got my money back, and it doesn't feel right to just assume I can keep it. If you don't want it back, I obviously will. But, yeah, get in touch. And for everyone else, go out and buy you a Buck 112. These things kick ass.